Walk through any city, pretty much anywhere in the world, and you're going to see them. Perched on statues, lined up on rooftops, scattered all over the sidewalks. Pigeons. They're so common, so much a part of the urban wallpaper that we barely even notice them anymore. But there's a huge story unfolding right under our noses. A story of explosive growth, of hidden dangers, and really, a battle for the future of our cities.
We've all seen this moment, right? It's like something out of a movie. Tossing some seeds to a flock of birds in a big city square. It feels nice, kind, almost charming. But here's the twist. What if that simple, seemingly harmless act is actually fueling a massive growing crisis? That quote really hits it home. That lovely, Instagrammable moment has a pretty dark flip side that most of us have no idea about. So to really get a handle on just how big this problem is, we have to talk about the numbers. And believe me, the numbers are absolutely staggering. We're not just talking about a few extra birds here and there. We're talking about a full-on biological takeover of our urban world.
Okay, let's start with India, because it's really the epicenter of this whole thing. Get this. Between the year 2000 and 2023, the pigeon population there didn't just grow, it surged by more than 150%. A recent report on India's birds actually confirmed that's the biggest increase of any bird species that grew during that period. Insane.
So what does a 150% increase actually look like? Well, it translates to a number that's almost hard to wrap your head around. An estimated 350 million pigeons in India alone. Just to put that in perspective, the city of Delhi is thought to have somewhere between 20 and 25 million of them. That's not a flock, that's practically a continent of pigeons. And this chart just lays it out visually. You can see it's not some gentle, gradual increase. It's a steep, almost vertical climb. We went from about 140 million at the start of the century to 350 million today. This isn't just natural change, folks. This is an explosion. And look, this isn't just a story about India. It's happening everywhere. The global numbers tell the exact same story. You go back to 1960, you had about 100 million worldwide. By 2025, we're on track to hit 600 million. That is a six-fold increase. It's simple, really. As our cities have gotten bigger, so have their most successful feathered residents. So, we've established there are hundreds of millions of these birds living literally right next to us. But what does that actually mean for our health? This is where the story takes a turn, moving from ecology to medicine. And honestly, what scientists are finding is pretty alarming. So the number one issue is this condition with a very long name, hypersensitivity pneumonitis. Some people call it bird fancier's lung. To put it simply, it's when your own immune system basically freaks out. It sees the tiny proteins from pigeon feathers and droppings that you breathe in as a major threat. So it attacks, causing inflammation that can lead to serious, permanent scarring in your lungs. It's your body's own defenses turning against you. And this isn't some theoretical one-in-a-million risk. There was this case in a Delhi hospital that just makes it all too real. An 11-year-old girl, just a regular kid living in an apartment, ended up hospitalized with this severe condition. And what was the cause? Pigeons. They were just nesting on her family's balcony. That constant, everyday exposure was enough to do serious damage to her lungs. And it's not just that one disease. Pigeon droppings can be a breeding ground for all sorts of nasty stuff. There's a fungus that causes histoplasmosis and a yeast that can lead to cryptococcosis, which can actually be fatal, especially for people with weaker immune systems. On top of that, they carry bacteria that can cause things like cystococcosis and salmonellosis. So it's not just the single threat, it's a whole menu of potential health risks. Okay, so beyond the direct risk to our own health, this population boom is throwing the entire urban ecosystem completely out of whack. Pigeons aren't just moving into an empty neighborhood, they are actively bullying other species out of their homes.
This is the conflict in a nutshell. On one side, you've got the feral pigeon. These guys are tough, they breed like crazy, and they hang out in these huge, dominant flocks. And on the other side, you've got birds like the little house sparrow, a bird that used to be everywhere in our cities. Now it's in critical decline, pretty much just because it can't compete. The pigeons just overwhelm them, taking all the food in the best nesting spots.
And the State of India's Birds Report, it spells it out perfectly. It says that these behaviorally dominant species, a fancy term for pigeons, are straight up crowding out other species. So every time we toss them food, we're not just feeding a few hungry birds, we're basically funding an invasion, helping them push out the native species that belong there. All right, so the problem is crystal clear. The population is out of control, it poses a risk to our health, and it's a disaster for the local environment. But here's the good news.
Cities around the world are waking up to this reality and are finally starting to fight back.
And if you look around the globe, you see some really clever strategies. Barcelona, for instance, has had huge success with a special contraceptive feed that humanely brings the population down. Singapore just went straight for a strict ban on feeding them in public, with a massive $10,000 fine. And London is even bringing back natural predators like peregrine falcons to restore a bit of natural balance.
Back in India, the tide is definitely starting to turn. This ruling from 2023 by the Bombay High Court, it's a huge deal. By giving the city of Pune the power to fine people for feeding pigeons, the legal system is officially saying, yep, this is a public nuisance and a health problem, and it needs to be regulated. That's a big step.
So what does all this mean for you? For me, in our own homes? Well, there are actually some really simple, effective things we can do. You can physically block them from nesting on your balcony with nets or wires. You can use simple deterrents like reflective tape or wind chimes. And this is critical. If you have to clean their droppings, please protect yourself. Wear a mask, wear gloves. But really, the single most important thing, the one that gets to the root of the entire problem, is just to stop feeding them.
When you boil it all down, this whole situation really comes down to a choice. The state of wildlife in our cities isn't an accident. Nope, it's a direct result of thousands of little decisions that we all make every single day. Let's be honest with ourselves. We created this problem. Our tall buildings are basically perfect, man-made cliffs for them to nest on. Our food waste and leftovers are an endless, all-you-can-eat buffet. And our well-intentioned habit of feeding them has completely removed the one thing that would naturally keep their population in check. This isn't a natural disaster, it's a crisis of our own making. So, I want to leave you with this final, really important question to chew on. By choosing to feed a species that is so dominant, so aggressive, are we accidentally building cities that have less variety, more health risks, and are just fundamentally out of balance? That humble, simple act of scattering some grain in a park, well, it turns out it has consequences far bigger than we ever could have imagined.